tonight. Thanks for joining the Oracles class, Fully Committed to Change. This is the last part of this series for Mastering Yourself, which is going to be very interesting because, I say fun, because this is the finale. This is kind of like the final phase. This is where you take everything you've learned and put it into practice. And I always talk about practice all the time. So this is going to actually show you how to do it. And it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to make it very simple, very easy. And again, if you could hold all your questions, write them down. And once we get to the end of class, go ahead and ask me all that you would like to ask me. Okay? All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Fully committed to change. We're going to go over the basic key points about commitment, okay? Commitment and change. Those are two key words we got to understand. This whole presentation is going to be based upon commitment and based upon change and understanding the two and how they work together. And we're going to give you different methods, techniques to work through so that you can stay on that vibration of change or creation or manifestation, whatever you're bringing into your life. So we're going to go over defining what is commitment and what is change. What are those two things? Then we're going to go into knowing the commitment, because knowing the commitment is key. A lot of times we make a commitment and we get into the commitment and we forget about it. It's kind of like a business plan. We start a business plan and we start working the business and we forget about the plan. Okay, so we want to make sure we remember the commitment. All right, so knowing the commitment, remembering the commitment is what we're going to go into once we talk about commitment and change. Then we're going to go into daily embodiments for the change or of the change. So how do we keep this change going every day? And it's taking small baby steps, simple things, day by day, day by day, day by day. Because everything that you do each and every day that's geared towards your goal means you're going to accomplish your goal. How many people have you ever seen that start a project or start something and they never can finish it? It's because they get gung-ho in there, they're running into it, and they're doing everything they can to accomplish this goal, but then they get fatigued and they were like, maybe this is not what I really want to do. So they kind of slow down and they stop and they kind of start over, or they change goals. I got some people that I work with that are notorious for setting a perfect goal, setting everything up perfectly, going down the pathway, the process, and keeping everything going smoothly. And once they get to the point where they get close to a certain space, they change their mind and they want to reinvent or they want to restructure. Well, you don't want to restructure and recreate at that point. You want to finish. And that is one of the key things that is a perfect excuse for someone not to be successful. You see it all the time. People start something and they never finish because they give themselves the excuse that I didn't finish because I changed my mind. I made this better. I'm making this better. And that becomes your excuse not to ever accomplish something or not to ever complete it. It's kind of like a gentleman was talking this weekend at the meditation, and he was preparing for the Olympic trials, and he blew his knee out 2 weeks before the trials. And then he came back and said, that was all a matter of he basically created that injury. So if he didn't make the Olympic team, he could always say, well, I blew my knee out before I got to the trials, so I never got a chance to really try. That is a key thing that happens with people all the time. They create an injury or create something that stops them from actually giving a chance to compete or to complete the goal. They kind of derail themselves real quick. So that's one thing we want to understand. We want to do daily things to embody this change so we stay on our task, okay, and we stay focused so we don't get in our own head and get fearful of failure and do something to sabotage ourselves, because self-sabotage is real. Then we're going to keeping checks on yourself. How can you keep little check marks? How can you say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm making sure I'm constantly doing this work and I'm moving closer and closer to this goal? So we're going to go over some checklists. How can you keep yourself accountable? And then we're going to stay aware. Now, awareness is something we have to be really keen on, because we can slip and float into these places that get real gray. And the gray is, I want to do something different. Or I'm going to change my mind. Here's a better way to do this. And you start getting into these different mindsets of change. and it's not the change that you want to do to accomplish. We want to stay focused on our change because the change is what created the pathway to go where we're going. Now, allowing for expansion and change through divine source is something a little different, but we want to stay aware. And when we're aware, we know it's coming from divine source or versus coming from our ego, okay, or our own fear. So that's some of the things we got to realize. And as we go back into the self-mastery, one of the things we really went over was self-awareness, because you have to know who you are and what's driving you. Then we're going to go into the next phase, which is called allow for change and expansion. Now, what does that mean? Allowing for change and expansion. Allowing for change and expansion means you're going to focus and stay accountable for yourself, sticking to the goal, going to the action plan, play by play, but because you're so focused sometimes, you're gifted. The Most High will gift you something. So you're gifted something and you might shift and change. You may skip some steps. You may move to a higher level. You may expand into something that's much larger than you originally thought you could have. So you have to be open for that. So allow for change and allow for expansion, because those things will come into your life if you allow them to. When you stay very focused, you will be rewarded. Okay. So last part about it is we're going to become the player. What does that mean? Becoming the player is the principle of causation all day long. Becoming the player means we are now creating the effect from our cause, and we're no longer being the effect of someone else's cause. Okay. And that's how we want to live our lives. Everything we're talking about here about mastering yourselves is putting together programs to make you better. All the way around. Building confidence. Being steadfast in your own mind, your own decisions. Not being fearful of anything. Allowing yourself to be limitless. But limitless is a little scary sometimes, because limitless means we can do anything. And that comes with responsibility. And that responsibility is what scares most people. It really scares you out your shoes, and you just don't want to do things because I don't want to have the responsibility of being accountable for myself or other people. Be very surprised how that works. So becoming the player. When you become the player, accountability is no problem. You're ready to do it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started moving into this. Fully committed to change. So what is commitment and what is change? What I did was kind of wrote down some dictionary definitions here. We're going to go over commitment first. So commitment, it is action and it's choice, okay? At the end of the day, that's what it is. Committing, that means you're taking action. That means you're taking a choice, you made a choice, and you're doing what you desire. You are committing to it. Now, that's the first part of it. So commitment also is to engage or engage to an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom from action. So an obligation that restricts freedom from action. So when we make that commitment, we're making that commitment for freedom, but it limits our freedom. So how do we work with that? Because that becomes a whole nother mindset, a whole nother place that we have to look at and delve into, because it's like, I want freedom, but now I'm limiting myself. So as I'm limiting myself to become limitless, you have to understand the plan and the process. One is going to feed into the other. So an obligation that restricts us from freedom is you making a commitment. Now, the commitment you're making to yourself that restricts you from freedom is the freedom from derailing yourself. Okay? So you're freeing yourself from that. Next, a state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc. So that's what commitment is. It's a state of quality of being where you're dedicated to something, and it's yours. It's your dedication. It could be somebody else's project, but it's still your dedication, okay? So remember, when you make that commitment, you always are in charge. You're always owning. And now, with commitment, don't be afraid to make changes. Changes can come about when commitments are made. So you have to adjust, and we'll get into that a little bit later into the presentation. Now let's get into the spirituality, or the spiritual. The spiritual aspect of commitment is accepting faith in God. So at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're accepting our faith in God. That means we believe in you, God. We know you're going to deliver us. We know we're going to do this. We're going to detach from all of our worldly fears, and we're going to have pure faith that we're going to make this commitment, and we're going to get what we desire from you. Okay? Now, when you do that, there are huge gifts that come behind it. And that's what I was talking about, expansion. So when you go from the expansion, that is what is happening. when you're allowing change and allowing the change to expand. When you make that commitment, the spiritual commitment to God and faith, unwaveringly, that means maybe I'm gonna do it today. I'm not gonna do it tomorrow. Well, I want to do this. I want to go to the bar with my friends. No. It's got to be a commitment. And this is a commitment you make before you even get started with everything. It's knowing yourself. When you make that commitment fully, that means you have faith in God that, okay, I can skip the bar today. I can skip the dinner out today. I can skip the drink. I can skip the party, because what you're doing now is committing to master yourself, and you're going to learn more about yourself. And the next party you go to, once you master yourself, will be on such a higher octave that you wouldn't believe that you stayed in that lower frequency for all those years. It's very powerful when you make that commitment. So that's unwavering commitment to God, accepting faith. Then the commitment truly is living that faith. You know, we can all talk that game. You know, we made the commitment, that commitment that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. But then all of a sudden, an opportunity comes up where you can break that commitment. I'm just going to do this a little bit. And what happens every time? Every time that happens, you start to break the commitment a little more, a little more, a little more. You start to go further and further left. The next thing you know, you're back to the old place that you were at. Now, that goes into something a little later, why we made the commitment. We're going to get into that, really deep into that, because that's a key factor for being successful with your changes, being successful with mastering yourself, being successful with anything. All this is an action, period. Action. Commitment is action. That means I'm putting something to work. And that is putting your own mind to work. It's putting your own values to work. So really focus on that. It's a commitment. A commitment is an action. All right. That's why I said it first. It's an action and it's a choice. All right. And you are individual, so you get to choose what the commitment is and the level of the commitment. Nothing is ever wrong. Just stick to the commitment. If the commitment has to start off small and then grow larger, let it. Don't sit there and say, I'm gonna go over here, and you know you got about 50 things that you got to work on to get to that level. Just do one thing. Commit to one thing first and make that little change, and then make that next change. You can set the goal up here, but then make the commitments as in increments. Step up, okay? And you'll hear me say that a lot. Step up in your commitments, all right? Step up. All right, my favorite one here. What is change? Change is something that's huge. Change is constant. Change is a guarantee. It's doing it different than before. Listen to me. It's doing it different than before. That means you're going to get a different result. If you did it like you did it before, you're going to get the same result. You just might have a different face, but you're going to get the same result. It is becoming. Change is becoming. Becoming goes into the mental gender. It is becoming. That is the feminine. That is the me of ourselves. Becoming, and we are always becoming. Every second of the day, we are becoming. Trust me, we are becoming. So we need to understand change is about becoming. Change is about shifting, being something different. Here's the dictionary definitions. To make difference, alter or modify, replace or substitute, and audible. You know, people say, what is an audible? Well, if you're an athlete and you ever play sports, if you come up to the line and you see a certain formation in front of you and you have a formation that's going to get smashed by that formation that's in front of you, you call an audible. You've seen them in football doing it all the time. Offensive line comes up, oh, we got a blitz coming over here and we're actually running right there. This play is not going to work. We're going to audible and go the opposite way. Audible, we change. That is what change is. And that is what? That's an example of doing something on the fly. So sometimes we got to change right in the situation. But we change according to the knowledge and experiences that we already have, and we change to do something to make us better. We don't change to make ourselves worse. That is knowing yourself, okay? All this stuff is about mastering yourself, knowing yourself. We make an audible. A shift or transmutation of state, physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. So change is a transmutation of state. So we can do that in so many different ways. That is mental transmutation. That is mentalism all day long. So as I'm going through this, I'm trying to bring these other factors in, everything that you've learned over this month, the 7 Hermetic Principles. I want to tie them in to your process, okay? So mentalism, we got to think about this. Transmutation. Change is transmutation of state, taking a physical, spiritual, mental, or emotional state and shifting it, making it something different. When we're mastering ourselves, we need to be able to do that within ourselves. What is this? Polarities. What is the shift? The transmutation is changing one to the next. That's the change, the aspect of change. What is the polarity? The polarity is the actual change, taking one to the other, taking maybe the most atrocious to the most beautiful, okay? They're polar opposites. They have exact opposites. If you understand polarity, you can start to transmute or change things very quickly when they come up. That is when you use the audible. There's something that comes up where you're mastering yourself up, something triggered you. How do I come out of the reactive stage and go into the active stage, okay? And that's a transmutation right there. Reactive versus active. Recognize I'm about to react. Polarize it, stop it, then act, okay? So all this stuff is going hand in hand. Everything goes. I know it's a lot because the 7 Hermetic Principles go very deep and they can get a little twisted. But just listen to what I'm saying. Go over these videos. Listen to what I'm saying, and you'll be able to do this yourself, and you'll make your life so much easier, especially when you're mastering yourself. Then you apply these things to things outside of you, and everything really starts to change fast. Number one, why? Because what's on the inside is on the out, and you already changed what's on the inside. Okay, so the outside starts to match it, and then you start to enhance it. And so when you enhance the outside, what happens? The inside enhances. And then again, you elevate it once again. So what's on the inside is on the outside. What's on the outside is on the inside. Principle of correspondence. Okay. So spirituality is forever present in our life, and will represent polarities. So when we have opportunities to change and shift things from one to the next, we're going to be looking at the polarities when we do that. Life is a playground. Life is a perfect place for us to practice all this stuff. We get all the experiences we want right here in life, every day, all day long. We just have to recognize them. We can either choose to look at it as something is happening to us negatively, and we hem and haw and grunt about it. We don't like it. Or we can say, this is happening for me. And stop. Oh, don't react. Act. See how we're doing it? We're changing polarities. Just being able to master yourself and see these different things. Life is a playground. You know, we're here to learn through experiences. And the experiences, we choose the way we get them, okay? So when you see something and it's not what you really like, change it. Look at it from a different perspective. How can you make it work for you, all right? Now, the more emotional, intense the situations get, the more difficult that little shift, that transmutation becomes. So I'm not gonna sit here and say it's very easy, but it takes practice. When you do something on a smaller level, constantly, and it becomes habit to you, and you're changing the inside, then all of a sudden, wait a minute, what's on the inside is on the outside. So I'm not even gonna respond to something that might have triggered me before, because I'm not even looking at it like anything, because I know me. And if it don't have nothing to do with me, and it's not me, you have your own opinion. Great, happy for you. Sounds good. All right, so next thing we gotta do is we gotta be fluid, okay? Making me audible, recognizing the situation, taking a reaction and making it an action. What is that doing? That's making us be flexible. We're fluid. Fluidity gives us perfect control over change, okay? We're in full control of our lives when we're fluid, because nothing can hit us and knock us out or knock us off our feet. Because when you're fluid, you bend around it and you just move, okay? So we have to be fluid. Change helps us to be fluid, and when we're fluid, we're in full control of everything in our environment. Fluidity, got to do that. Being aware and deciding how we want to experience life. Is it working for us or to us? That is maturity. That is an aspect of spiritual maturity. As we become more mature spiritually, we start to see things are happening for us. And the big thing is we take accountability, because the first thing we understand is, I created this. So wow, if I created it, I got to take accountability for it, and I need to be okay with having this experience. And then you see it happens for you. Now, you chose for it to happen for you the way you may not have wanted it to, but you've taken that responsibility now. And that is growth. That is spiritual growth. What is spiritual growth? Change. Change is constant in everything that we do. Change. You sit there and you breathe, I can guarantee you're going to breathe 10 different times, 10 different ways. Okay? Change. It's always going to happen. It's always on us. So we always want to focus on how is this happening for us and not how is this happening against us. Our perception is our reality. So everything that we perceive, if it's happening for us, then it becomes a reality that's happening for us. If it's happening against us, it becomes a reality of happening against us, and then we become very reactive, which again is going to be going into the egoic state. All right, we want to stay out of the egoic state, the lower egoic state, so that we can continue to elevate and master ourselves. Always want to recognize that little ego. And as you get more mature spiritually, the ego gets smarter, and it starts to give you different tests. And it touches things that you would never think it would touch, and you're like, whoa, where'd that come from? And it slides in. And remember that one little step here, I'm gonna go hang out this is one time, and I'm gonna hang out another time. That's the ego. It does one little thing, and it can go in increments so small. Remember vibration, it can be moving so slowly that you don't even know it. You think it's standing still, but it's actually moving. So remember that, okay? Our perception is our reality. So we wanna perceive what we wanna perceive. Moving on. Knowing the commitment, this is key, all right? We have to know what we're committing to. If we don't know what we're committing to, then we're kind of sunk in the water. We're kind of lost. We're lost beings. We want to be able to know what we're committing to. And that's being true to yourself. Don't be afraid to commit to something that you enjoy that someone else may not enjoy or someone may not approve of. It's your life, okay? You be true to yourself, okay? Be true to yourself. Know why you're making the commitment. Now, this is something, when I was going to come back to this. Know why you're making that commitment. Why do we make commitments? We make commitments so that we can make a change in our lives, so we can move into a higher goal or reach a certain goal to bring ourselves into something that we desire, okay? A higher level of us. The question is, when you make this commitment, and you got another commitment, are you running from something, or are you moving towards something? Running from something or moving towards something, okay? That's something we want to make sure we understand. Are we running from it? Are we running from a relationship? Are we running from some type of job? Are we running from our failures? Are we running from our parents? What are we running from? Are we running from people around us? So we go to a new city and I get away from all these people. And all of a sudden the same situations come up. Why? It's because you're the key thing. You're the only thing that moves with you, okay? So we gotta understand, when we make a commitment or we make a decision or set a goal, are we running from something or are we moving towards something, okay? That's something that's key. We gotta understand that. You also understand, are you doing this for yourself? Or are you doing this for your parents? Are you doing this for your loved ones? Are you doing this for your spouse? Who are you doing it for? Who are you making this commitment for? Everything we're talking about is self-mastery. So the obvious answer to that is you should be doing it for self, because we're working on self-mastery. This whole month is about self-mastery. So why are we doing things? Why are we making these commitments? You want to know that. And you got to really dig deep, because sometimes you're doing it because your parents wanted you to do it. My parents wanted me to be successful, and they said success looks like this, and if I am in this field, I can be successful. And so you go into that field, but you hate it. And you know, you can be so successful at it, but you know, if you really went into something that you love and you really expanded that, you'll be successful and you'll be happy. You'll be successful beyond measure, you know, and that's what you want to do. Living our lives as human beings is about getting the experience that is the greatest and best and most comfortable and pleasurable that we can possibly have. We just went over, is this commitment for you or for someone else? So you want to know the reasoning behind the commitment. When you know the reason behind the commitment, it enables you to know how much energy you will put behind the commitment for its success. So that's something we have to understand. If we know the reason, our own drive, remember, we want to know, are we running from something or we're running to something. Now, if we make this commitment and it's because we're running from something, you're putting yourself in a situation where the energy that you put behind the commitment of success is going to be a little lower. Because guess what happens? Watch my hands, or you can't see my hands online, but when you see the video, you'll understand it. But watch how my hands go. When you're running from something, this is the point that you're running from, this stability that you don't like. When you run away from it, you get way over here. Guess what happens when you start to get so far away from it? You start to not see it and feel it anymore. So you start slowing down. And now the commitment to success starts to change because you're no longer feeling the pains and the hardships of what you were running from. And now that you're not feeling the pains and the hardships of what you're running from, the commitment stops. And then what happens is you fall back into that old lifestyle or that old paradigm. Same way that, oh, I'm just gonna hang out this way, and then the ego slips in, and next thing you know, what happens, you start going backwards. And then the crazy thing is, when you do this once, you go back further and it gets more intense, okay? And then each time you go run away from it and you get far enough away from it, they say you cross this invisible threshold, and the invisible threshold just allows you to now just, I don't feel the pain anymore. I'm comfortable. And you slip back into that old thought process. You slip back into who you were before. So when you're running from something, you got to understand you're going to run so far that you're going to cross an invisible threshold. And when you cross that invisible threshold, your drive stops, okay? When the drive stops, what happens? We revert back to the old person. So we have to know the reason behind the commitment. We have to know it, okay? So when we know it and we are running to something, guess what? We don't get so far away from this that we don't feel anymore to stop. We keep running to what we want to get to, and we land on a new space. And we land on a new space, we become a new person. We come to a higher version of ourselves, a higher level of ourselves. And then we operate out of that system, and then we can make another commitment. But you don't ever want to run from something in order to get to something. Because if you run from it, when you get far enough from it, and you don't feel the pain and the uncomfortableness, then you're going to stop. Because guess what? When we're uncomfortable, we change. The uncomfortableness makes us grow. So the uncomfortableness made you grow to move to something, but you got to move to something, not move away from something. Okay. So we want to understand and know the reason behind our commitment. So know your motivation. What is your motivation? Next, what are you committed to? What's the real goal? And all these things I'm saying in this slide are kind of very similar. It's really just knowing yourself, asking yourself different ways. Why am I doing this? What's the reason behind this? Ask yourself 100 different ways if you have to, because you want to make sure you get to the real answer. Because if the real answer is I'm trying to get away from this, at the end of the day, you're probably not going to have the energy to succeed, because you're going to run out of steam. You're going to run out of that drive. So you want to slow it down and think about, what is this? Why am I really doing this? Okay. So when I teach this about self-mastery, I want people to master themselves through the spiritual realm. That's knowing yourself spiritually, physically, emotionally, and mentally. So all four bodies are in balance. And when all four bodies are in balance, you come into a space where you can create like crazy. You can manifest because you're in an energetic space. Your vibration is high because you know yourself, you love yourself, and nothing matters to you around you because you're completely detached from everything else. You're only attached to God. When you get to that space, life just changes automatically. It's very hard to do that as a human being because we live amongst other humans that are going to be testing us. Okay? So when you're trying to master yourself, you want to know the reason. What's the goal? My goal for self-mastery, I didn't care about anybody else. I wanted to spiritually ascend. I wanted to find out who I was. I wanted to get the best out of me that I could possibly have. And I wanted to know that I was doing the work that I was created or intended to do by source. That was my drive. So people ask a lot of times, how do you keep going so much? It's because I'm not running from something. I'm running to something. And as long as I got to get to that something, I'm going to keep moving. And so my drive keeps going. That gives you the drive for success. Just remember that. Spiritual ascension was my goal. Some people have financial security. Anything, your goals are fine, your commitments are fine. When you're mastering yourself, why am I mastering myself? Because I need to get myself together and get my finances together. Cool. There's nothing wrong with that. So your goal is your goal. There's nothing that's wrong. Make sure that your goals are self-righteous. Make sure they're going to be for you and not for something else. A lot of people do things for their children. They do things for their family. What happens if your children are taken from you or something God-forsaken happens or that drive is gone? Then you fall completely down, okay? So at that point, we're not good for anybody. So we want to make sure that we're doing what we're doing for ourselves, and we want to know our real goal in and out, all right? Fame is another thing that I had on here for people. Some people might want fame. If you want fame, cool, go for it. Nothing wrong with that, okay? Keep working till you get it. All great things to know, to keep the commitment going. These are all great things to know. Everything in this slide is great things to know, ways to ask yourself questions different ways so you know your real reason. These are the things that are going to keep you going. These are the things that are going to actually allow you to know what you want to do. And knowing is part of self-mastery. So we want to know. Now, next slide we're going to go into is daily embodiment of the change, okay? Change and the commitment, because the commitment is part of the change, all right? So how do we do that daily? First of all, I want to congratulate everybody because you all did take the step to even take this class, take this series of classes so that you can master yourself. So you've already made the change. You already committed, okay? You've made a commitment. You've made a commitment to at least understand yourself. Now, we need to go back into that previous slide. Why? Why are you here? Why do you want to learn about yourself? Why do you want to master yourself? Why do you want to know this information? Because that's going to be key again to your success, okay? And just be real with yourself, because guess what? Today, if you're like, I'm not really into, the change in the self-mastery, it's okay. Nobody's going to judge you. It's your life. It's your choice. It's your choice. If you make the choice to commit to doing that, going back to your old self, that is okay. We're all on our unique individual spiritual paths. Whatever happens in your life is happening for you. If you step forward or step back, it's happening for you. That means you have to get some experience and be okay with it. Just get the experience. Some people are born to stay stuck. That's just their karmatic debt. They have to experience it. We seem like it's sad and, it's terrible. No, it's God's way. Who are we to judge it? Things just happen. It is what it is. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we have free will. So we might be born to be stuck, but we're also born to be stuck to get unstuck. Think about it. Because everything is happening for us. And we're supposed to be here to enjoy everything. So just remember that. So congrats, you made the step to make a change. One thing I want to say is take small steps. Make sure you take small steps. I was in a class years ago, and the book, How Do You Eat an Elephant? How do you eat an elephant? I was like, not at all. But the correlation is an elephant is huge. How do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time, okay? That means you take small steps. You can eat a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. Keep moving around. Sometimes you might start on the leg and you move to the back and you go, all kinds of different things. Mm-hmm. So until the elephant is eaten completely. So it's taking small steps. It's taking one bite at a time and congratulating yourself for getting that bite done, chewed down, digested. Continue to give yourself congratulations and celebrate your successes for every step that you take. And don't take too many big steps. Take small steps, because a big step can be very overwhelming. You take too big of a bite of something, you could choke, okay? And it stops you in your tracks. So just take small steps. So what you want to do daily, create a little list, a plan. And what have I done today to reach my goal of self-mastery? What have I done today to show my commitment? What have I done today to express change? Just little things. It could be, I went for a walk. It could be, I said a prayer. It could be, I was aware of my negative projections. It could be I was aware of my positive projections. It could be I was just aware of myself moving forward and striving to become better. But just make little goals and just check them out every day, because check this out. If you do little things like this every day, if you check off a list, I congratulated myself. I was able to transmute a negative to a positive. I was able to recognize a negative. I was able to recognize a positive. You start to see more about yourself. When you do this, these little steps every day, you're learning more about yourself, piece by piece by piece by piece. What happens in a month? What happens in a quarter? What happens in a year? You know a whole lot more about yourself than you did. Now, if you just start in January and say, I'm gonna master myself by the end of the year, I guarantee if you try to do it that way, you get to the end of the year, you like, what did I do this year? Who am I? You're stuck. Take one step at a time. You will be surprised at what you can learn about yourself in 1 week if you just be accountable for writing down and just saying, this is something I express. When I would teach people to make a mirror, I would say, list your pros, list your cons. List out how many times you express the cons, list out how many times you express the pros. See if you're expressing positively or negatively throughout the day. Just by doing that tells you, oh wow, in 2 or 3 days, you know if I'm expressing negatively or if I'm expressing positively. And if you're expressing positively, then you keep doing it. If you're expressing negatively, you polarize it, okay? You learn how to polarize one thing at a time. Don't try to do all of them at once. When you recognize a con, first stop it. Get used to stopping it. Now you're neutralizing it. Now, the next day, recognize it, and then polarize it, and express the opposite of it. And by the end of the week, you start to change everything. And after that, you never think about the negatives again. You only think about the positives because you polarized everything. And now just think in 2 weeks, all of a sudden you're expressing everything positive. But if you try to just do it, I'm gonna express positively, so just outwardly express positively. And now notice I said outwardly. When you outwardly express positively and it's not done from the inside, then it's not built on any stable foundation. Okay? So it doesn't need to be outwardly praised to yourself, it needs to be inwardly. All right? So take one step at a time and just look at the things that you're changing. You know, look at the things that you're accomplishing. Look at the things that are on that list if you do a mirror. And there's a class that I have where you can actually learn how to do a mirror. If you all want it, just shoot me an email. I'll be glad to send it to you. All right, so you have a plan. So now you got to know the plan, know the ins and outs, all the aspects of the plan. And that is what you do. It's like creating the mirror is knowing the plan. A mirror is a plan, but you could create your own plan. Know your plan. It's make sure it's fully realized and you embody it. Now, what does embody mean? It means you become it. That means like the mirror, you become the mirror. You're actually expressing the negative or expressing the positive. Oh, I'm either stopping the negative or increasing the positive. I'm becoming the actual plan. That's how you do it. That's how you embody something. You write it down, as simple as that, and then you express what you're doing in the plan and you live it. And you say what you're gonna do. You have specific instructions with the mirror. So at this point, when you start to express the plan, when you start to embody, when you start to live it, you start to see the change, you're motivated. Be excited. Not only be excited, stay excited. Stay excited. I put it in 2 times. Stay excited, because that excitement breeds running to completion. Excitement, you're not excited that you're running from something. You're excited now because you've accomplished something. So you want to stay in that accomplishing mindset and mentality so the vibration raise. Run to something, okay? Stay excited. Keep the plan in action, okay? Continue to create a condition through habit or practice. How do you create a condition through habit or practice? The more that you do it, the more you become it. Example again, back to the mirror. The more that you polarize these things, the more that you list them, the more that you know them, and the more that you see how they're expressing, the more that you understand more about yourself. Now, the more that you stop them, the more they stop happening. The more that you polarize them, now you become positive. And now you keep living that positive life. So it's one step at a time. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps. That's how you're gonna change. All right, 1 step at a time. Embody it. Keep it into your life. Create the habit of doing this daily. The little checklist, all that little daily stuff that you do, creates a habit. That means you start to do it all the time. Don't start a habit that's too big or trying to do something that's large, because it's going to be overwhelming. Make it so simple that you can do it. Don't make it too simple that you won't do it. Just put it kind of in the middle. Remember that balance point. Stay right there. Repetition, every day, all day. This commitment must be expressed throughout your day. When you're doing these things, for an example, like using a mirror, expressing the gratitude for having the mirror and expressing the gratitude for making the change has to be done every day in and day out. When you do it day in and day out, it becomes a habit. What they say, after 21 days, it starts to create a habit. So just keep doing it. Make it to 21 days. And you will start to see. It's like you start exercising or doing certain things. Once you make it to that 21-day mark, it becomes a habit to you. And you just automatically go into autopilot. This needs to be done the same way. Make it go into autopilot. Autopilot means you've embodied the commitment. You've embodied the change. So when you're doing this, visualize success. Affirm the success. Make your checklist. Keep doing it. Keep going. No matter what, you want to keep on going. Keep doing what you're doing. When you do all this stuff, you start to really understand the next hermetic principle, which is continuously putting mental gender into play. So how do we put mental gender into play? We have now created an idea, a thought of doing these little things. That is the I, the masculine part of the brain. Now you're doing the things, and the things that you're doing start to create an alternate reality. The reality being created is the me. So as you continue to project our personal thoughts into ourselves, you're creating alignment with our own success, okay? And then you're creating your reality. The more this is done, the more grounding the commitment or vision becomes. What is grounded? It means it becomes your reality. It becomes very seeable and noticeable to you. It becomes yours. You're like, okay, I'm in this. I get this. I'm good. All right? So the more that you do it, the more it becomes you. All right? So the more harmonious it becomes with our desires, the commitment that is, it continues to become. And when it continues to become, that means the feminine aspect is creating it. When you embody the commitment becomes you, okay? And it does that because your me is creating the reality, all right? All right, so we're moving on over to the next one. It's gonna be keeping checks on yourselves. So now you made a daily task list and you're doing things and you're here, but always keep a check on yourself. You know, don't ever think, hey, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna do this into the point where I don't need to check myself anymore. Everybody needs to be accountable. So make a checklist for yourself. Keep checks on yourself. Make sure the commitment is measurable. So if you're starting to see the commitment is kind of wavering and you're not being as successful at the commitment that you want to be, then maybe you need to make sure the commitment is measurable, it's attainable. Make sure it's something that you can actually do. And again, remember, don't take that big bite, take a small bite. Scale it back some, all right? So keep checks on yourself. Keep constant checkpoints around you. I love using the example of the mirror because the mirror is something that is constantly with us because it is us. And it's something that you can learn to do quickly and very easily. Just learning what aspects of your personality you're projecting, whether they're positive or negative. And once you get to the understanding of what they are, polarize them and then continue keeping them in a positive space. And never look back to the negative, you know? When I'm doing the mirrors, I only spend maybe 3 or 4 days max on the mirror of the cons. But then we move into the pros and we don't ever look back, okay? So again, just making everything measurable. You wanna make sure that you have things that are showing that you're getting closer to your ultimate goal. So again, break them down into steps, whatever it takes. If it's, okay, I need to be a happy and joyful being every day, all day. As you start to check that mirror and you start to express those happy and joyful thoughts, and those expressions start to become inward, then they become outward, then look at everything around you. Start to hear what people are saying about you or saying to you, not more so about you, but saying to you. Allow these things to be your measuring tools. Say, I want to see how many people I can affect in a positive way and how many congratulations I get today. And then you start doing things. You're doing things for a higher good, righteousness. Okay, so when you're showing things that are getting you closer to the goal, at that point, the commitment is becoming a reality because now you're actually seeing the results of all of your work, of your commitment. Now what's happening here? Now you're going to get even more excited, okay, because you're actually succeeding. And I'll give you an example, a simple example, moving outside of the mirror. For example, a home being built. A home is built from the foundation up. What do you see when you first see a home being built? You see the dirt removed and moved to the side and the foundation set up. Then you see them pouring the foundation, the concrete. Once the concrete is set and is settled, everything is together. Then you start to see them building the foundation, laying the woodwork or the structure. And then you start to see them putting in the interior of the structure, building the walls, but it's still 2x4s, it's still planks, it's still, the structure is still being built. You don't see that final product until the very end, all right? So that's what you wanna do. Use the checklist to build you from the bottom up. So your checklist should show things that are at the beginning of how you're starting and how you finish by the time you finish. Seeing new pieces added in the proper place shows progress and completion. So when you start to check yourself and you start to be accountable and you start to look at what you're succeeding at, then each success is another piece to the puzzle. And you start to see your puzzle, your self-mastery coming into its full fruition. So use it and see yourself coming into your highest version of yourself. With every little piece that you put together, see yourself developing into a higher level and higher frequency being, all right? Everything comes into your reality at that point. It says beware of the small things. So why would I say beware of the small things? Small things don't do anything. You can step over them. Not necessarily. I'm not talking about it in that sense. Beware of the small things because the small things create bigger things, okay? So you can take 10 little sticks to make one big stick. Whereas that one big stick, you may not have ever been able to pick up and move because it's too big, it's too heavy, it's too much for you. So take small things, take smaller pieces to build larger pieces. And what does that do? That even builds a stronger foundation. When you take many little pieces, I mean, it's an old thing. Take 20 wires or sticks and wrap them together and twist them tight and try to break them, they won't break. But you take 20 sticks and let them loose, they'll break, okay? Put them together, all right? And then again, celebrate the execution of the change. Celebrate, and I said that a couple of times. Celebrate. Celebration keeps you into that higher frequency, keeps you into that knowing, keeps you into that understanding that I'm actually accomplishing everything that I want to accomplish. So stay in that space. All right, so stay aware. Now we got all this stuff going. We got everything hitting on all the cylinders. It's working. Stay alert. You know, it's like you got to always keep looking around because that little ego is there and it's just waiting for a weak spot, okay? So just stay alert. Keep the energy high while you're staying focused. Keep everything in a high vibration. Stay excited. Don't stay so excited that you become aloof and you're not paying attention anymore. Just stay excited and be excited about everything that you're doing and your accomplishments. Watch your notes, look at them. As you chart your stuff in notebooks or on paper, you start to see your successes and then celebrate those successes. Always look at them. Notice any distractions. If you do, that's all right, acknowledge them. When you acknowledge them, remove them, all right? Be okay with the distractions. You don't have to keep fighting over distractions and resist distractions. Allow them in and allow them out. As fast as you allow them in, allow them out. What does that mean? Don't judge yourself, okay? We start to get into the awareness and we start to do all these things and we slip up. We start to judge ourselves. That's the first thing we do. Judgment. Self-judgment comes in and we're like, oh man, I messed up. And then you think about it so hard that you go into a tailspin and you think about something else that you did. Well, let me think about it. Well, I could have done that better too. And next thing you know, you got a spiral going downward. Okay, so if something comes in as a distraction, something comes in as a lower vibration, be okay with it, allow it in, allow it out. Don't judge yourself about it. It happens. We're human beings. When we make a mistake, we get uncomfortable, we fix it, we get better. We make a mistake, get uncomfortable, and don't fix it, and don't move through it, then we get worse. Okay. So we want to keep doing it. All right, stay with this mindset. It is part of the commitment to change. Stay with the mindset. Stay with that mindset that distractions are okay. Failures are okay. They're okay. The only thing that's not okay about a failure is staying in that failure. That's the only thing not okay about it. The faster you get up from that knockdown, the stronger you are, the better you're going to be. Because guess what? The next time you're not going to get knocked down because you're going to see it coming. You're looking for it. You're aware. All right? All this is part of awareness. You, at this point, when you're keeping this mindset, being okay with distractions, you're allowing is allowing things to flow. Fluidity. When you're doing this, you're becoming a higher version of yourself. That means you're mastering yourself. You're learning the shortcomings, and you're loving the shortcomings, and you're moving through the shortcomings and making the shortcomings your strong points. Okay? That's what we want to keep on doing. Constantly keep doing this. Constantly keep doing this. When you keep this new mindset in the forefront of your thoughts, you begin to create a reality. You create a reality that is yours. All right? And the slide reads like this. Keep this new mindset at the forefront of your thoughts. Why? Because thoughts create reality. When you're thinking, you're creating. Remember that thinking is the I projecting to the me, and the me is creating a reality. All right? All this stuff goes together. It's gender, mental gender. It's creation, recreation. All right? So just remember that. Keep the I working. All right? This is something we got to keep doing. If we let the I get lazy and goes to sleep, then some other I is going to impregnate our me. You don't want that, okay? Because we're trying to master ourselves. Once we get to this point of self-mastery at a certain level, it's very hard for lower frequency I's to even scratch our surface, to even phase us, because our frequency and vibration goes up so high that the lower stuff that has been affecting most people can't affect us anymore. Can't do it at all. So keep the I working. All right, now we're going to allow for some change, and we're going to allow for some expansion. And why do we do that? Because we're creating, number one, through grace, and our manifestation may change. We have to understand our manifestation may change from our original vision because of this level of commitment. When we start working on ourselves and we start doing all these great things, we start to expand as a human being. We start to become a very high frequency. And when we become that high frequency, the Most High is looking, and the Most High understands it, knows it, and the Most High will stroke you and give you a little pat on the back, a push on the tush, and move you into another reality, a much higher reality. And then it could be a reality that's much higher than you even thought you could exist in. It's because you've taken these small steps, committed to it, constantly doing it, day in and day out. You've embodied it, you have become it. And so now what's on the inside is on the outside. The manifestation of what you created on the inside now shows up in your reality on the outside, and you're congratulated for it. Okay? Happens all the time. You're always congratulated for that high level of commitment. Here, the key is trust. All right? We got to trust. We got to trust the process. We got to trust the principle and the sub-principle of mentalism, which is the all. What is the all? God. You got to trust. All right? So again, we bring those principles. Here they go, coming right back in. And this is almost at the end. We're allowing for expansion. We're allowing for change. And you're like, well, I'm almost done. So allowing for expansion and change at this point, really, I'm almost there. Well, yeah, you're almost there, but guess what? You were going there here on this plane. You just bumped to this plane, and now you're moving up on another frequency. So just be open for the expansion, open for the change, and the possibilities of the all to give you something more. Source will always offer a different direction or a higher outcome due to the high level of commitment. So if you're already wanting, let's say you want a financial goal of $1 million, and you're doing all these things, and you're just building yourself in, and you're doing whatever, all of a sudden you go from 500,000 to 1.5. It's because you're being congratulated for your work. And what is that? That is because you're expecting that. This is the program I'm putting into your minds so that my I is now impregnating your me. Okay? So I'm doing it because I want you all to go to a higher frequency. I want you to look at a different thing. I want you to go from not just where you are to believing and knowing that you can actually exponentially jump by doing the small things. Remember I said, focus on the small things. Focus on the small things because they make bigger things. And sometimes they make the biggest things. So focus on those things. Okay. Um, Source will offer a different direction or a higher outcome due to your high level of commitment and trust. Trust is the biggest thing. Trust is equal to faith when it comes to the Most High. So we got to be in that state. When this happens, steps in your plan may be skipped. All right? Steps can be completely skipped. Higher manifestations will be created. And I'm telling you that now. They will be created because of your due diligence, because of what you're doing. All this is part of the commitment to change, which is why you started this journey in the first place. Mastering yourself, you started in the first place so that you could change. Everything is based upon mastery. So now it circles right back around. So have gratitude. Be grateful for everything that's coming to you. Because as you do these little steps, things are going to start coming to you very easily, moving easily and easily. So what happens next? You're in this great space. You've been rewarded. Just like you've celebrated, you've been celebrated. Now you become the player. What does become the player means? That means you go straight into the principle of causation. Okay? Causation. Now it's simple. When you're in causation and you're the causer of the effects, flow. Because you're creating your reality at this point. Nothing else outside of you is creating this. You are creating your reality. So just flow with it. Keep going. Keep going. Have fun with it. This is the time that you enjoy this part of self-mastery, because the more that you master yourself, the easier things get around you. It's because what you're changing on the inside is automatically changing what's on the outside. I say it 1,000 times. Okay? At this point, the embodiment is manifesting itself. You are automatically doing it. You are on autopilot. The habit has now become a paradigm. It has become your knowing. How do we create, or how do we manifest? We manifest in a state of knowing only. We are now in a state of knowing because you've completely embodied it and you're manifesting everything that you desire. See? Now the program has been reprogrammed at this point. Congratulations, you made it. It's done. Self-mastery is at your fingertips. Now I say it's at your fingertips because you might have mastered this level, but there's another level. And you keep mastering, because the game keeps changing. The only thing that's ever constant is going to be change. Okay? God and change are absolutes. You can guarantee that. Guarantee that. Okay? So at this point, when the program has been reprogrammed, you are now becoming the effect of your cause. You are the master of causation at this point. You have become it, and it has become you. You have become it, and it has become you. All right? So what is that? My favorite saying? Because what? Because what's on the inside is on the outside. So we got to always remember that. That's the biggest thing we want to remember. So I'm going to leave you all with these quotes, and these are things that I say as I'm working and understanding these different principles and helping people to master themselves. Change is constant and beautiful when you know it's happening for you, okay? You got to understand that. When it's happening for you, it's beautiful. It's constant and it's beautiful. Change is constant and beautiful when it's happening for you. When it's not happening for you, it's not so beautiful, all right? So remember that. Change is constant and beautiful when you know it's happening for you. You are in charge of what you know, okay? Remember, be active instead of reactive. Okay? Last thing is here, the strongest programming tool is you. Your mind holds all the keys to your destiny. Use it, okay? You have all the answers. The strongest programming tool is you. Why is it you? It's because you are the program. You and you only. The only way someone else becomes your programmer is if you allow it. And then you, once again, were the strongest program to give your ability or program to something else. Goes back into mental gender, the I and the me, the masculine and the feminine duality of the mind. Okay, so I'm gonna read that again to you, and we'll end on this. The strongest reprogramming tool is you. Your mind holds all the keys to your destiny. Use it. All right? So that concludes the class on fully committed to change. And I appreciate you all for joining. And I want to say Ahava Shlema. Much love, peace, and blessings. And Y'all have a good night.